On today's episode of Anish Thing, powered by Movie, we talk about 5 offbeat movie suggestions, recommendations for you to watch. And I think this episode will come in very handy with all of those conversations with your friends where everyone's like, what to watch? Well, this episode answers that. Hi, Svetlana. Good to have you on the show.
Hi, same here. Good to be here.
So you've got a fancy job. I think you must be getting a lot of hate from people for that. Tell me a little bit. Tell me a little bit about what you do.
I do get a lot of envy from people, not necessarily hate, but I'm like, you don't know the other part of my job, which is like watching way too many films, blanks you out at point, and you can no longer watch films for recreation or enjoyment after a point, because it's like I do this all day, so let me just do something else, and not like there are many something else to do, I program and curate films for Mubi India, which is a global streaming service. We launched in India in 2019. And since then, I've been looking after the content-related operations in India, which goes all the way from selecting Indian films that we show in India, sometimes globally as well, and presenting international titles that we have for India in a curated sort of way, which syncs in with maybe local events, themes, and some seasonal programming.
So, what's the kind of criteria that goes into selecting a movie for the platform?
It has to be a great film, is how we put it very simply. It's not like there is a specific rule book that we follow, but we're open to all kinds of formats. So it can be fiction, non-fiction, short film, documentary, anything. It has to be a well-made, great film with a message or with a storyline that we feel will resonate with our audience. A lot of time the selection is based on certain specific programming requirements that we have in mind. So for example, that I know that in June we do a whole month of Pride programming. So if there are certain films that I come across before that, which I feel will fit in the Pride programming, we go ahead with those kind of, choices. Often it's that, I've come across a film and we do like it, but it's too early in the stage of the film or too early for us to acquire it for future programming. So in that case, we, let filmmakers know and it's a pass for us. But essentially, great quality cinema in any language from anywhere in the world and India. So that's what we're looking for.
So movies, offices, people come to office, lie down on the couch, open their laptop and watch a movie.
We don't have an office in India, so I lie down on my couch at home and watch a movie.
Perfect.
If that sounds...
So what's the criteria for today's recommendation that you've come up with your list of must-watch movies?
Mubi is a niche platform in a way. But it's perceived as like very niche and esoteric, and that it would probably have, for a lot of people, it could seem like something that's inaccessible, that these would be boring films or these would be documentaries. And the films I've picked up for today, these are, I feel, nice, gentle entry points into world cinema that sort of, take you into the world of foreign language films in a very beautiful, delicate way. They're very accessible. There's holiday season coming up in December, and, it's the sort of a very quiet, happy, romantic sort of time of the year. And so those are the films I've sort of kept in mind. When people watch these, they would hopefully, if they've not ever explored the platform before this, they would hopefully feel more curious about what else is there on the platform. So, and they are not necessarily, in a very movie sense of the way, because we are perceived as, super heavy. I wouldn't call them light, but they are more gentle films in that sense.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, which one are we starting with? Mood for Love?
Of course, I guess. It's the ever iconic Wong Kar-wai film. And as a lot of people might know already, Wong Kar-wai is a great filmmaker from Hong Kong whose films have been known for their emotional depth, and the way he sort of takes you into his world of cinema. Most of his films that are set in Hong Kong, and this film in particular continues to be sort of a icon of romantic cinema in world, I would say, for everybody, and but specifically in the cinephile world, sort of remains to be the icon of modern romance. It's a film about this couple. It's set in 1960s Hong Kong. It's about this couple, these two people. I would not even call them a couple yet, who are neighbors, and they you slowly discover how their partners, or respective partners, are having an affair, and these two people sort of start meeting and interacting to overcome that betrayal, grief, and end up falling in love. And this film has remained iconic in how it was shot. Every little detail of the film, from the frames to the actors to their performances to to the stolen glances they share, to especially the music of the film, which now you see it's such an iconic theme. You see it being used in Instagram reels. So it's not the merger of two kinds of worlds one would imagine, but that's what you see, and that sort of also speaks for how how what would I say? I don't know what's the word for how the film has aged so well across for generations, and not just, I mean, this is just one. If you want an entry into Hong Kong cinema or Wong Kar-wai's world, and have a nice want to watch a beautiful romantic film about yearning and a painful unrequited love, which is still beautiful, this is the one to go for, and it can be your beautiful entry point into the world of Wong Kar-wai himself,
Yeah.
not just movie. And that's that's a magical world to discover.
To me, it's also interesting to find movies that age really well, because sometimes you look at a movie from the past and you're like, what were we thinking?
Yeah.
All right, that sounds interesting. Which is the second recommendation?
Um, so the second recommendation would be The Worst Person in the World, which is a very recent this film by Joachim Trier. It was Oscar nominated earlier this year, and one of the most refreshing, funny, and relatable films in recent times as far as modern love is concerned. It's the kind of relationship conflicts and confusions that I guess a lot of 30-year-olds, millennials, so to speak, must be experiencing these days. The lead character, she's a young woman living in Oslo, and sort of trying to figure out a life and career as a photographer, falls in love with this man, and it's essentially about their relationship through different stages post breakup, and once she starts seeing someone else and then goes back to this person. And I'm not trying to not give away too much about the
I was just going to
storyline.
say, we'll have to also keep it in the way that you don't
Yeah.
give everything away.
And talk more about what the film makes you feel,
Yeah.
So it's about these conundrums of who to date, how to navigate a relationship. And we're spoiled by choices, and you're with someone, but you are at a party, you meet someone else who's also exciting, and how what is the meaning of any conversations. uh, yeah, what if you had very limited time in life and you knew that your life is going to end at XYZ point? Would you still live your life the same way as you're already living? So the film poses a lot of questions that we sort of are, juggling with. And it tells you the story in the most life affirming way. The lead character, played by Renat, she's a wonderful actress, and she just takes you with the character. She makes you live that life that she's living, and like takes you into her world. And that also creates a very like distinct bond between you and her. You never, even when you feel she's not making some correct choices or making some correct choices, you're always with her and rooting for her. And also, it's a very feminist character. She's super headstrong, and a lot of her life decisions, even despite all romantic confusions, they're coming from a very ingrained feminist identity, and that's also something very beautiful about the film.
Is this like a date night kind of movie, or uh, will this cause more issues?
Depends on who you're dating.
Yeah.
If you relate, if either of you relate to the characters um, in the when they're in their negative phases, it would probably make you think or rethink.
Yeah. Yeah, this can be a tricky one. Be careful who you're watching this with. Actually, what about a movie suitable for a date night?
What you can definitely watch for a date night is Paris 13th District, this film by Jacques Audiard. And it's a beautiful black and white romantic drama about these two young people who meet in Paris and fall in love and then sort of go their separate ways, still remain friends, and eventually discover love again. And it's beautifully shot, needless to say.
Paris.
It's black and white. The city is magic. But what is amazing about the film is also how inclusive it is. It's not the lead characters. Uh, they are. You see that they're. A lot of time in cinema, even though, especially when people are watching films from a very from an Indian point of view, not to be judgmental, but you sort of perceive Europe or say France or Paris as a white sort of space. The characters would essentially be white or European looking, but that's not the case in this film essentially. And the apart from the main characters, even the other leading character that they have in the film, her journey with love and is very beautiful, like from bullying that she experiences at university to because she is mistaken for an online sort of a character, and she eventually befriends that woman, and makes friends with her, and eventually they discover their own sort of emotional connect. It's a very it's a very heartfelt take on romance, this film. That how sometimes how you meet people accidentally, how it's a lot about serendipity of meeting people. It's about when you meet them, how you sometimes take so long to realize that they were the one, and it's just so beautiful when you do realize it in time and are able to get back together.
Yeah, this getting back together again. I was just thinking of that. Yeah,
So yeah.
that can be an interesting date night movie for sure. Tell me one thing before we go to the next movie. Uh, I'm assuming home consumption for movies would have just picked up since COVID, right?
Yeah.
Has that trend been going on?
This year it's been a bit up and down, but it's still increasing. I mean, it hasn't sort of dipped per se. What we do see is when something very prominent or significant comes up, like, say, a film like The Worst Person in the World, which is Oscar nominated, or Drive My Car, which won at the Oscars, or In the Mood for Love, which is like a classic in itself. So the viewership picks up instantly, and which sort of then also spills over to other films which are playing on the platform.
And these kind of movies are not in theaters in India, right?
Very rarely, very rarely. It's only they did release in theaters over the period of time. You would get to see them at film festivals, definitely. Parasite released in the cinemas very recently. Parallel Mothers, which is a Pedro Almodovar film, Spanish film, that released in the theaters. So there are few people who are doing that once in a while, but sadly, people don't sort of flock the theaters for watching these films. They're also the people who probably watch it on the platform. more than the.
What's the ecosystem of the community like if someone's interested more in cinema like this, right? Uh, are there websites, Instagram accounts? In India, what are the kind of festivals that might happen?
So one is the recently concluded International Film Festival of India, which happens in Goa every year from 20th to 28th November, same dates every year. It's a government-run festival, however, and so comes with sort of some logistical issues sometimes, but they do bring or at least are often always able to bring the best of film festival premieres from around the world. So the films which have won at Cannes, at Berlin, or Venice, or the kind of films which Indian audiences won't get to watch here because they don't release theatrically. Film festivals become the space to watch it. In Mumbai, it used to be Mumbai Film Festival, which due to the pandemic, hasn't taken place last 2-3 years, and hopefully next year they'll make a comeback. So that's where the audience in Mumbai gets to watch it. Then there is the International Film Festival of Kerala, which is sort of the mecca for all kinds of world cinema because the audience there is in love with foreign language cinema. The kind of queuing up you see there, the kind of interest that they have for art house, and the most esoteric of films are houseful in Kerala. So that's an amazing
That's
experience to see.
interesting. Where in Kerala does this happen?
Trivandrum.
Super interesting. I would have never assumed that. I would usually assume your mommy and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, the Kerala film audience, the cinephile audience of Kerala is something else. So, like how people would have a sort of stampede for a Bollywood star, they would have it for a very esoteric art house filmmaker that very few people have heard of.
Interesting. All right, moving on. What is our next movie?
Next is another film which could be fun for a date night watch, which is Shiva Baby. It's a debut film by Emma Seligman and one of the most, loved films on the platform. The film is about this sort of a coming-age story of this young girl played by Rachel Sennott. And she is, so it's sort of in a Jewish background. And you see that she's supposed to attend a ceremony called Shiva for which is sort of a post-funeral kind of a meetup with her parents. And the film is essentially this evening where she's navigating family, friends, relatives, her parents, an ex-lover, and someone else that she is who's a family friend, but she met that person on a sugar daddy matchup kind of a site. And so it's this chaotic evening, and it's this girl, very young girl, sort of losing her mind, and also trying to hold of her own space in that chaotic evening. It's hilarious, it's funny, and because it's also very relatable for Indians, especially because of you sort of could find yourself in that kind of a setup in a large family and friends, family, relatives kind of a gathering. And the use of sound in this film, like how the anxiety builds up, because you can see that this girl is sort of you don't want her to explode because you want her to be protected from the judgmental wrath of everyone, but you feel that everything is building up around her for her to just explode and give it back to everyone. Whether or not that happens is something people shouldn't get to know when they watch the film, but it's a hugely entertaining and funny film to watch. Stressful because of course,
Yeah.
but funny at the end of the day.
Yeah, you said anxiety. So that this one sounds a little heavy though.
Another Indian film on the platform that would be great to watch is About Love. And it's about love, not necessarily romantic. It's a documentary directed by Archana Phadke, and she's captured 3 generations of a family who live in this one building in South Bombay. And so it's the grandparents, it's her parents, and she and her siblings. her brother is about to get married, and so the film is set in the backdrop of the wedding preparations and everything is that's going on in the family. And the way she's shot and how candid her family has been to the camera, how candidly she has gone and explored sort of the different conversations and the interpersonal equations of her family. It's a very beautiful uh, tribute to the strange affection that binds families together, because when you're living together there is a lot of chaos. There is a lot of negative conversations, or there will be, banter, from banter to sort of getting mad at each other. All that is there, but it's a very beautiful subtle sort of depiction of how there is a strange string that sort of keeps everyone together and makes them survive in the same house, without any ounce of melodrama. So the film does not take you into any, unlike, hum aapke hain kaun or a hum saath saath hain kind of a
Oh,
thing
I was thinking
like
Monsoon
that.
Wedding.
Yeah,
That's
Monsoon
what
Wedding
came
is a
to mind.
beautiful film.
Yeah.
But yeah, not like, so no melodrama, but just a very honest, candid peek into her world and her family, and you're like, you come back thinking that one of the somebody is always sort of foul mouthed or angry, and somebody is always distant, but at the end of the day they've got each other's back. And it's I did feel once that maybe it's a very voyeuristic pleasure as a viewer, that you're getting so much of a insight into one family. um, but it is what it is, and it's really heartwarming to watch.
So it's all real stuff.
Yeah, it's all real stuff. Everything, like her mother, she writes stories and poetries, and how that's her only me time, and the equation between the grandparents and then these kids, how they're like laughing their way through some of the dysfunctional bits of the family, and and just sort of living in this one big house together.
Interesting. Since we've spoken about two Indian movies, what's the landscape of Indian indie cinema right now?
It's a very, it's a scattered landscape in many ways, because if you want to go to one place to find cohesive information about what films, as an outsider, if you're in the independent film industry, you sort of, almost everybody is aware. You have a friend or a friend of a friend who's worked on a film which is going to Rotterdam, which is going to Berlin, which is going to festivals, and then is going to come to India. So that ecosystem always knows. But outside, as a viewer, if you want to discover, there are unfortunately very limited, sort of avenues where you can find that one place where you'll find all the information. There used to be a platform called Dear Cinema years ago, which was a website which is not there anymore, which sort of was quite dedicated to news and updates about what's happening in the Indian independent film scene. Right now, it's Film Companion is doing great work, but it's not like you that's only dedicated to independent scene. So you would obviously have to go through the website and surf a little bit to find what's happening. Mubi definitely we have these specific strands, what we call strands, which is basically we group films together. So you go to this group called New Voices, and you'll find the debut or second films of all newer filmmakers. There's a strand called Shortwave, so where you'll find fresh short films. So these are some things that we do at our end on the platform to make the discoverability of such films easier. Apart from that, sadly, it's like what it's a lot of work, but you keep track of what's a lot of times Indian films which get to festivals, and which is sort of also a marker of that this is a film which is probably worth your attention. Platforms like Variety, Hollywood Reporter, Screen, they also write about these films once they get to a festival.
And and how often do you end up adding more movies to the platform?
So the format essentially is one new film every day, which happens every day. One new film gets added to the platform every day. With Indian films specifically, it's a I can't say that every month that there are 10 Indian films every month. It varies sort of, depends on various considerations, like say I want these this X film, but it's not available, so that negotiation, licensing, all those conversations take time. But there are some or the other new Indian films on the platform every month. So yeah, that's the there's no specific frequency to it yet.
Well, Svetlana, thank you so much for coming on to the show.
No, thank you so much for having me here. It was really exciting, and it's always nice to talk about films, and especially about the films that we are showing on the platform. Uh, yeah, thank you for having me here.
I hope you enjoyed the episode. We are also on YouTube, so do check out the channel on YouTube. Do like, share, comment. Helps us quite a bit. And I'm going to give a shout out to my friend Saransh in this episode because he always makes me watch terrible movies during Christmas. So, Saransh, please see this episode and let's watch better movies.